Hey TV fans, Bored Now back with you, and on this video I'm going to be doing another review of Them the Scare. So this is episode 6 and the episode is the episode is called, I should say, Would You Like to Play a Game? So full spoilers as always from the start of this review. So 2 more to go after this one, and there's some really good drama with Dawn and her family in this one, as we start to see more and more the effects of whatever is going on with like the black magic stuff and how it is starting to affect her family life, how the murder case and the drama of that is starting to affect her family life, and to the extent where it's now going after her son, which I'll talk more about. But yeah, there's some good drama. We follow it up from the last episode where Dawn was taking the boy Benny to the hospital and he was having these attacks, and it seemed to be something to do with the black magic and the stuff to do with Edmund, and the boy was like his bones were cracking, and it's revealed at the start of this episode that he didn't make it, he died. And because Dawn took him away from the house and left her partner there, she was alone with the boy, so she is like the main suspect. Now, the way they tried to paint it is that she did it with a baton, even though she says she hasn't used her baton in ages, and because of the damage to the boy's body, because of how severe it was, she makes the point that I couldn't possibly have done that. But that's what they're saying, and it's understandable, at least, even though it's implied that maybe she's being stitched up a bit at times because of racism. It is at least understandable why she is like the suspect here, because she was alone with the boy, and there's certain things that are brought up that make her look quite erratic. But that's the start of the episode where she's under investigation. We see her having flashes of what happened to Benny in the back of the car, and she awakes in the back of a car of the lieutenant, the character played by Wayne Knight, and he is saying to her, just give me something, just an explanation of what happened, something I can use. And she can't explain it, but she's saying, you know I didn't do this, I couldn't have killed that boy. And it's a really good scene, and one of the things I like about the scene is that the Wayne Knight character, he's a little bit like the Skinner character out of X-Files, or at least the way Skinner is introduced, where at first you sort of think that he's maybe just as complicit in like in this case, in the racism and all the politics around the policing, and that he's maybe no better than some of the others. But as you get to know him a bit more, you see it's a little bit more complex. And he does seem concerned for Dawn in this scene, even though there's moments where he comes off as a bit too harsh with her, and like when she says, because there's a great line in the scene where she calls out the racism a little bit, because she says to him, what happened to closing ranks? And that's a great point, even though like it would be wrong anyway to like sweep something under the carpet like this. But she does have a great point, because they have been doing that when it comes to the white cops, but because she's black, it seems they're not willing to do that. She's under investigation. So it's this great snapshot of what's happening really with the racism, because it's like, yeah, she should be investigated, but then so should the white cops who are involved in shady stuff going on. And it's at that point where the Wayne Knight character gets quite sensitive and says, hey, this is on you, you did this to yourself, like, you know, this isn't my fault. And there's a couple of lines from him in the scene where he is kind of finger wagging at her and getting quite preachy, saying you had all these chances, you could have been chief of police one day and you kind of blown it. But that is something I like about his character, is I think you can see in this scene that he does actually care about her. So there's kind of shades of light and dark where, a bit like, as I said, Skinner in those early X-Files episodes, it seems like he's towing the company line up to a point, and that maybe in some ways he's forced a little into it and maybe doesn't want to, or maybe just doesn't quite have the guts to speak out. But like, he's not totally complicit, and there's a human side to him, and it does seem to me, at least, that he is looking out for Dawn in this scene, because when he gets her back to the precinct, they put her in handcuffs, and he's like, hey, is that really necessary? So there's little moments like that where it does seem he does care for her in his own way. But yeah, she's questioned by the panel, and it's implied that there's certain things where it seems like they are kind of stacking the book against her, like the stuff, the patena. They start bringing up issues of violence, even her own partner Joaquin. And part of this might be because he now has no other reason but to believe than she killed this kid. And probably that in his mind she was a bit rash taking him away from the crime scene like that. But even him is he's giving evidence that is making her look kind of violent. And most notably, Ronald is now giving evidence against her, saying she's become obsessed with this case, she's become obsessed with him, and has been like stalking him. He brings up the incident from the other night, and when this is raised to Dawn, she tells the people questioning her, says, no, that's the other way around, he's been doing all this. And they bring up violent incident from her past where she was suspended, and they ask her at one point if she's got like a drug history, and she says no. And then they show her a toxicology report which is positive, where it seems like she has been taking drugs. So, and there's things like that where you're not quite sure if this is legit or they're just stitching her up a little bit, like, again, to do with the racism. But something like that, again, it's possible maybe Dawn has been taking drugs just because of what she's been going through, but it could easily be a bit of a stitch up. So it's at that point that she demands to take a lie detector test. So they put her on the test, and one of the things that comes up is that they ask her if she saw the 3 victims the day before they died, if she had contact with them, and she admits to having contact with 2 of them. So she admits to having contact with Benny, because of course she did talk to him when her and Joaquin went to the house. And she admits also to, I forget the guy's name, but like one of the earlier victims, the one that she chased down the street after he reacted in a certain way, but like, she admits to having contact with him. But Denise, I think who was the first victim, she says, no, I didn't have contact with her. And she seems to be telling the truth. But then they pull something out on her, because they says, did you grow up in her house? And this just throws Dawn completely. She's like, what? And then they rephrase the question. The question becomes, are you adopted? And this is obviously recent knowledge to Dawn, so it's not really fair to put this stuff on her anyway, but it slowly cuts away from the scene, and I think you can tell by her face that she's about to say, yes, yeah, I am adopted. But it cuts to later, and the Pam Grier character, Anthea, picks her up, and so I'm assuming, like, she's out on bail or whatever, why the investigation is still ongoing, but Anthea picks her up anyway, and because of some of the stuff which has gone down between them, there's a lot of heat, and it's a powerful scene because when she gets to the car, Dawn insists that she's driving, give me the keys, and she says it's because I don't trust you. So she takes the keys off her and she drives. And later on, when they're at the dinner table where it's the three of them, her, Anthea and Kyle, or Cal, she insists then from now on, even though it's the mother's car, like it's Anthea's car, she insists from now on, if you want a lift, I'm doing it. So it's a really powerful stuff, the fact that she doesn't feel she can trust Anthea, and obviously feels so betrayed that she won't even let her drive her own car. And once again, I think it is this very powerful, dominant personality that Dawn has that is leading to this, and also some of her paranoia. So, a couple of other things before we get to the stuff at the dinner table is then Anthea loses her job, and it's because she refuses to sell a doll, and it's the same doll that we've seen Edmund use. And so Anthea says to her boss, this doll is racist. Trust me, our customers wouldn't want to buy it anyway. They wouldn't want us to be selling it. And, like, the boss gets defensive. Are you calling me racist? And Anthea's like, no, I'm not, but I'm telling you how I feel, and I'm telling you how it would play to the customers. And the boss brings up that Anthea has been acting funny for a while now, and it's almost like her refusing to sell the doll is like the last straw, so she basically fires her. So that's another example of things not going great for Anthea, and how this is impacting on the family. And then at school, Cal is getting, like, abused because of what's going on with his mother, because it's all in the news. But I think this is where he first hears about it, because his girlfriend or friend, I'm not sure which one, but I think she's meant to be his girlfriend, but she approaches him and starts giving him stick about it and says he's been lying. And it's like, if you're ashamed of your mother, or if your mother's a cop, that's one thing, but you didn't tell me she kills children, or that she killed a child. And he's really taken aback in the scene, partly because he's like, this is his friend, whatever, but it also comes across to me that this is the first time he's hearing about it. And there's people making comments in class as well. So when they're in class, they get a visit from, like, a police officer, and he's with another guy or person who's in like an outfit, so in like an animal like outfit. So it's one of those things, and it's one of these, like, demonstrations, like, to show them then, hey, it's not cool to take drugs, don't take drugs, that kind of thing. And it's at this point where a voice starts talking to Cal, and the way it comes across is then it's like the guy in the animal suit talking to him, but the voice says, hey, do you want to play a game? And it just gets inside his head, and he ends up being manipulated by it. And the next thing we know, he's, like, on the floor on all fours, and he's kind of freaking out, and it's in the middle of the class. So later on he gets home and the three of them have dinner, and there's this whole thing where he's defending Anthea, his grandmother, in the dispute. Says, you're always getting on her case, like she hasn't done anything wrong. And that's when the mother, who is kind of getting ticked off with Anthea, and just says in the middle of lunch that, hey, guess what, I'm adopted, she's been lying to me all these years. And Anthea reassures Kel that, hey, whatever she says, I'm your grandmother, I've always been your grandmother. And things come up about the past to do with, like, her husband, Anthea's husband, apparently being abusive towards her. And Dawn says, I only really knew my father for 15 minutes, and yet I'm meant to have based my career choice on this guy. I barely knew him. And they have a big fight. Like, Anthea storms off, but then Kel still takes her side pretty much, because he says, you're always blaming people for your mistakes and what happens. And this leads to them bringing up the past, because Kel says, you always blame my father, but he was doing the best that he could. And he brings up this idea of Dawn was never around when he grew up because of her job, and how the father did her best and things like that. So Kel is very critical of the mother, and he's got this performance at the school on that night. So it's a performance, it's like one of these band type things, with like the trumpets and the hats and what have you. So they've got like a performance. And he says he doesn't want the mother to be there, but Dawn goes anyway. And it again leads to another incident with this voice in his head. And once again, this seems connected to Edmund and the black magic and stuff. But Kel keeps seeing this, like, this animal again, this guy in the animal suit, and he's got like the red hair, and he appears to him and is talking to him, and Kel has a seizure at one point and passes out, and that's when Dawn rushes to him and says, I'm here for you, as he's like having this seizure, and slowly comes around. But that's the end of the episode. That's like the big end of the episode. So yeah, another good episode. As I said, some good drama, and things really came to a head with Dawn and her family in this episode. I thought all that stuff was really well done. So yeah, then The Scare, episode 6. So just 2 more to catch up with now. And yeah, look out for the final 2 episodes, my review coming up soon. I will just say, partly the reason why I'm catching up with this is because next week, I think on Thursday probably, I'm doing a special live stream where I will be listing my top 5 films and TV shows of the year so far, so half a year. And so I'm catching up with stuff to get ready for that, because there's a chance that this show could make the TV list. So yeah, if you're interested in hearing me talk a little bit more about some of my favourite shows and films of the year so far, then you tune into that live stream next Thursday. So look out for that. But thanks for listening. Keep watching TV. Like and subscribe as always. Support me for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/borednow. And I'll see you guys again soon.